if I say this wrong, just help me out. I make a motion not to approve the abatement. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The wording, is that wording okay?
Brenda? Is that sufficient that he moves to not approve the abatement, or should he deny it?
Motion made. Hold on. Hold on. I think this is the police or the fire.
Go ahead. Take your time.
Water department. This is Brenda. Good. How are you? Yeah.
Okay, do we have any other discussion on the abatement?
All right.
I have no other discussion.
On-call guy.
Neither do I.
All right, sorry, guys. I said if just a motion
To not approve or deny.
to deny the abatement request.
Okay, Steve, if you want to state your motion.
I'll make a motion to deny the abatement for 110 Beach Street.
I
Wait a
second.
second. All in
All
favor?
in favor, Steve?
Aye.
All
Lee
right.
Jenkins, aye. Abatement denied. We are doing it this way because I did the course last night, and with the new Zoom rules, they want roll call for all votes.
Okay.
That's why we're doing this. Is Don around by chance?
Yep, he's here. Hold on. Oh, come on. Dawn is in.
Don,
Good afternoon.
hello. Yes. So we're doing our financials.
Rate study or financials?
Financials. We're waiting to the rate study towards the end, just in case John Steinmetz can happen to get on because he's involved in the power outage.
Oh,
And Jason recommended we put off the rate study towards the end, if that's all right with you.
yeah, I just, I gotta be gone by 4:30 today. So, depending on how that goes, I gotta go at 4:30. But,
I think we'll probably be at that place by 4:30.
so water, great shape. 51% collected so far. Our collections for usage are at 68% due to our high usage for the first 2 quarters. We're up pretty significantly from last year at this point. Also, system development charges, we've collected 81,000 to date, and we budget 40. So,
Yeah, so we're doing well.
so we're doing well. We're up about 22% over last year, and really the big drivers are usage and the connections.
And then we still haven't gotten all the monies totaled for the last billing because they weren't due until December 2nd, correct?
They were committed November, yeah, so December, yep.
Yeah, so in the next budget report, we'll basically see everything that was paid for the second billing.
Yep. Yeah, and then on the expense side, we're looking good, 63% total, but only 31% of that is actual operating expenses. So we're in great shape through November.
All
Keep
right,
up the
does
good work.
anybody have any questions? Steve, no?
I have no questions.
Okay, fine. Well, let's just continue to move along. Plant automation.
Stephen Lee, did you receive a copy of the proposal from Woodard and Curran for automation services for engineering assistance?
I did. I read through it this morning.
I mean, I can go line by line through the scope of services. It's pretty straightforward. I'm not requesting approval or recommending that at this time, me and Jason have had considerable discussion. And it's because what happened last week, I actually reached out to Jim McLaughlin regarding some other issue. Jim is the DEP representative we deal with regarding automation and trying to get that approval. So once our conversation was over, he did bring up coasset water automation, and he was fairly forthcoming in saying that he had some real concerns and he felt that it was kind of a stretch. And when I asked him to elaborate on that, he not only said, well, it was kind of a gut feeling, but he alluded to the fact, and I thought he was going to reference something regarding the water quality, the raw water quality or the plant operation. And he didn't. He actually referenced the security of the facility first. When he wasn't talking about the building itself, he was talking about the perimeter. And he felt that would have to be addressed. He came right out and said, if we don't address that, it's a no-go for him. And he's aware. And it's interesting because he didn't really bring that up or recognize it in the sanitary surveys that have been performed over the years since 2013. I believe there's 2 or 3 of them. And he did mention that as well, but he said, he realizes there's a lot of recreational use. He had some concerns regarding that. He did reference sharing all the documentation that we submit with the Boston office, which means he's going to be working with them in reviewing this. To be honest with you, I'm not sure what that means other than it's going to be more challenging. There's going to be more eyes looking at it and scrutinizing what we're proposing. So it was kind of, it wasn't, I mean, he's a good guy and he's very straightforward, very transparent. He was very forthcoming and saying he had some real concerns. He wasn't comfortable at all the way it is. So I guess what I'm getting at is you would probably have to consider some significant capital outlay to secure the building even before he would consider approving automation. And that's just one step. We don't know what he's going to find or, what they may request, even if we bring them in and we show them that the SCADA complies with the regulation itself, that there's no other Chapter 6 issues as it relates to chemicals or chemical containment or the way the building is or the way, the process is being operated. So there's a lot to consider even before I would suggest approving this proposal. Jason and I, again, had a lot of conversation about this regarding, looking at those costs, what it would take, maybe reaching back out to DEP for an open and honest conversation about, okay, what's really going to go on here? And what do you think you're going to ask of us? And does it make sense for us to move forward? And is there enough of a significant savings to automate this plant that's worthwhile to put the upfront expenditures, the capital expenditures forth? So quite a bit to discuss. So at this point, I don't think any of us are ready to recommend, approving that request for automation engineering services, that is. So Jason, have anything to add? Go ahead, Steve.
So what kind of perimeter security are they looking for?
Typically in water utilities, specifically water treatment plants, they want a full fence, a secured perimeter. He was aware of the recreational activity, meaning people accessing the property very close to the facility and accessing the water body. He had a problem with that. And I thought that was kind of interesting because he's been to the site many times, never really, again, dinged us in the sanitary survey to say, hey, this needs to be taken care of. So now I think there was somebody, I think Brenda told me that they did get a price on putting a fence around the facility some time ago, and it was considerably expensive. So there would be probably 50 to 70,000 of a capital outlay just to secure, and that doesn't take into consideration of, maybe the public outcry or politically what that does to the board of your position or what you would be dealing with in having to secure that location and kind of close it off to the public. And I don't know if he comes out here, he's going to question access, recreational use and access to those bodies of water from anywhere. So that's one of those questions that I believe Jason and I will ask him. We need to be as transparent as we can be about what's happening and really get a good feel for what, how he would make his decision based on knowing how the plant and the reservoirs are, utilized. So there's a lot to consider.
Okay,
I
one other
can't
quick question.
imagine. Sorry, go ahead.
No, the facility study, is it doing anything about security?
Both the facility study and the AWIA are noting lack of security in both plans. So that will be an item that will show up in both of those studies that we're in the
Okay.
process of
Yeah,
doing.
good question. So yeah, definitely will be flagged.
Because I know we've had a lot of people coming through. I remember the first year I was on here, we had a resident try to dispose of a sick invasive fish at the intake,
Ugh.
and she was caught.
So with that said, again, Jason and I will probably have to talk with Jim McLaughlin further, get with the regulators and really kind of pick their brains as to what they're thinking, and even if this is a possibility, because I'm getting the feel right now, we have a 50-50 chance or maybe less of getting it approved based on how we're operating right now. And I can't, and nobody will guarantee approval even if we do everything they say.
That's the point. You're saying you'll get a 50-50 chance if we have a fence put up, a 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
Without a fence, it's a 0% chance.
That's kind of crazy. So all these years, and obviously I'm coming in on the 9th inning on this one. You've gone through this whole process of getting the skater up, and nobody's has mentioned about security. I do find it odd that you just drive down there, you could take a kayak out in the parking lot and go fishing. I mean,
That is
Funny. Till I was sitting here and I saw how many people walk by me on a daily basis and wave while I'm on the phone as they're walking by. It's kind of funny.
yeah,
Well,
It
yeah,
is.
and don't forget Conservation Trust has that area right up the street on King Street that they want as a point of recreation into Lily Pond.
I mean, for Fred and Jason, you can't just fence off Lily Pond or Aaron River. You can't do that.
no, the
It's-
plant though. The treatment plant you can, and then we'd have, even if you decided to do that, we have to find out first, what he's thinking regarding recreation on the bodies of water themselves. If he said, listen, none of this should be happening, then I would tell you, then we got to forget about automation. I'm almost there
No,
now.
unmanned operation. We have automation.
Yeah, forgive me.
Unmanned.
operation.
Yeah.
As an advice for Jason, try to get that in writing from him, what he's required. If we could put that in an email so you can have it.
Yeah. We're going to get all the stuff from the AWIA, which is the risk and resiliency assessment. The capital improvements plan is going to note it, but that's part of what Fred and I want to do. He and I were both discussing it all day today, oddly enough, and even before this, but it was, if you spend 10 grand and it's going to cost you 100 grand to implement it, and we don't have 100 grand, then
Yeah.
And there's no
do you
guarantee.
wait till we've done the 100 grand worth of work that we need to do first, and then do the plan, because the regs could change too between the time we submit this to DEP and we get the fence put up. So I think, like we said, to have a real conversation with DEP and say, this is the goal too. Like, we're not going, because as Fred and I were discussing too, we're not going full unmanned operation, like start up from scratch. We're looking at just trying to save the concept of the guys staying here till 10 o'clock at night, the shutdown piece. So do you have a different level of demand if we're going to do a lower level of automation or unmanned operation? We're not going to have the plant start up at midnight when no one's here. It's going to be more for the 8 to midnight shift of operation.
Yeah,
And-
and you're just not going to
Gotcha.
save that much.
Yeah.
In labor.
And that's the point. So that it gets that weird, we get into that circular reference of when is the payback on your investment?
I was going to ask you, so what would be the payback, and how many
Well,
years, and
Well, it depends upon what the
the criteria is?
the chapter 6 stuff should be done anyways. So if there's anything that's not compliant with chapter 6, we should implement it. But, and security should at some point be implemented, and there's a cost to that. So maybe at that point, once we've checked all those off and done all those capital improvements, maybe then we revisit the unmanned operation. But in the meantime, it's not worth spending the 10 grand if we don't even have the fixes in place that we know are lacking.
Okay. Lee, how you feel? I'm kind of good with that explanation.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, we should bring it back up in a subsequent meeting after we get some more information. But it does not look that hopeful.
We can get pricing on fencing and so forth to help you.
But like you said, Fred, what's the level of fencing he's going to look for? Is it from the water's edge in front of the parking lot to around the lagoons and back to the water's edge, or what?
I would assume we would go from the water's edge, wrap it around the driveway up to the garage, then back to the lagoon, so there's not direct access, but
Yeah.
it's kind of ridiculous if you think about it. If somebody wants to really get at the body of water.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you need some video coverage also?
I think we already have video. It's just, it's,
Do we have enough?
that's, I mean, to get an extra camera, that's not a huge.
Okay.
It was certainly
Cost.
hopefully, not a bad idea.
We have extra cameras left over from the implementation, so we just have to plug them into SCADA. We got spares when we did the SCADA project.
It would be a bad idea at some point, just go and get pricing for fences and get some ideas. So at least maybe in the next month or 2 months, 3 months, we could talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the Tetra Tech capacity analysis.
I'm going to table that one too. We were going to look to do a capacity analysis of the plant to tie into the GAC project to make sure we size it correctly. But we found some existing reports today that we hadn't provided to Tetra Tech. I provided those to them and asked them if we still need to do the capacity analysis or not. So we can table that for the time being.
Okay. GAC piloting.
GAC piloting, we had a meeting about that this week. We are due for the test run to be over as of January, the first week in January. We own the rental of the equipment through February. We're going to see where we're at as far as where we're at in the process as to whether we need to extend the sampling past January 1st. And we'll come back to you at a later date as to if we need to do that or not.
Okay. Asset management.
Asset management and lab testing. Let me go over to my other computer and show you what we've been working on. Share screen. I'm going to share my screen. So first off, we have your graphing of information, Lee. So I took all the historic information and put it in a spreadsheet and provided it to Fred's group. They have since taken that and put it into the system that they use up in the lab to do their data entry of their in-house lab testing. So now they then pull the data out of that system into this platform here. So we're now in the process of getting all the information in a usable manner so that we can then do these trends over time of whatever constituent level pumping there is. So you can change the range of dates that you want to look at and everything in here. So that is where we're at with the graphing for both Lily Pond and Elms Meadow. So we're continuing to build this out, and it's in a format now where for a very small amount of effort, Jonathan and the guys upstairs can maintain this data moving forward, and it won't become a too cumbersome process for them to maintain that information.
Okay, but flipping back to Elms Meadow with the sodium chart.
Yeah. I knew you'd like that one.
Yeah, well, that's when we changed the chemical, correct? So we had the spike.
That's when you went on full time. That's when you went, don't quote me, but I
When we
think,
went on full time and, okay.
I think that's when we started
Well-
going at a more regular basis out there.
Lee, you are correct. When we switched to or added the sodium hydroxide, sodium levels went up.
Mhm. Now, we are not getting any infiltration from any of the salt used in the ice removal in the area?
I don't think you're seeing any significant spike.
Okay. But we're still in safe territory?
So this is the one we are building this out for more constituency, but I knew that was one of the big ones you were concerned with. So I made sure we got the sodium in there
Mhm.
first.
Are these daily testings, weekly testing data?
Depends upon the constituent.
Okay,
So there'll be some stuff in the plant. When you get to Lily Pond, there'll be some stuff here that's done in the lab on a daily basis. Then there's stuff that's done monthly, and then there's certain things that are done on an annual basis. So it depends upon what constituent it is. Some of them may even be done less frequently than even annually. So
Now, what's causing that spike in sodium in, looks like 2018?
here in 17,
You know, 17 going back to the right there, it looks like 17, 18. It's,
here.
no, over to you, move it to,
Oh, to my
I'm looking
right,
at it to the
sorry.
right there.
I don't know. We had so to look at things, and I mean, maybe Carl might be able to answer why there was the sodium went up.
I will have to look at the data, but I know we had some erroneous information. So I need to look at these to determine whether or not these are correct numbers.
Yeah, because that graph looks a little strange compared to the rest of it.
It does. I mean, the raw water shouldn't change much at all.
No, because then, it seems smooth until 2018. But. All right, do we have any other questions about this?
So then,
Now, is this going to be accessible to us? You're going to be reporting, we will be able to see more of this on a
yeah.
monthly basis?
So we're trying to figure out that piece. This is the next piece. First
can
is
hardly
getting
hear
data
you.
in- Sorry, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yep,
yep.
The heater just turned on. So the first piece was getting the data in there. And then yes, this program requires a license that at this point I found out today, I don't even have. I have like a test license. But yes, we'll either make these available in printed out graphs or figure out some other option to make it accessible to everybody.
yeah, because that would be a lot easier for us when we're,
Oh, 100%. This is, like I said, this is light years beyond where we've been. So we're getting there slowly but surely.
Jason, go get that license. So you can,
It's weird because I would say yes, but it's a weird Microsoft thing. So it's like it has to go through IT in order to get it because it's on our like Office 365. So Ron is trying
Oh.
to figure out how to get one license assigned to my account. Type of a
Gotcha.
thing. Yeah, it's in the
Okay.
works. It's just it's a weird
yeah.
setup.
Now, about the Peppermint Brook testing, because I noticed that was ongoing when I first joined the board, then it suddenly stopped. And I don't know why or,
So it is still on my things to do with Brendan is go out this winter and recover those sites.
Mhm.
And don't log in wrong. Oh, that one worked. To recover those sites, So we are going to try and recover all the sampling locations and then start the sampling process. In the meantime, Jack Buckley reached out to me and is looking for something that the kids might be able to get involved in. And I might pull them into that as well. But all the data coming to me, not to Jack in the end. It would be a client type relationship between Jack's students and the water department, not Jack's students and Jack. In the end, we get the data. And I would be making sure that the sampling protocols are done correctly and all that kind of stuff. So
Now, what about Jack's students? Remember, they were doing some testing in Beechwood, and considering all of the work they're doing in the harbor, I was a little surprised that they didn't want to continue, since Bound Brook there runs right into the harbor.
So in the end, I am going to, if I get Jack's kids on, I'm going to expand it from Aaron River to here too, the sampling, not just focus on Peppermint Brook as far as doing this. So
Yeah, I
He
can
and
never understand why, after going after Jack about this for the last 4 or 5 years, that he's just kind of ignored us.
he gave us the data, but the problem with the data is it's not in context. So he gave me a bunch of information. You saw it. I sent it out to everybody. But if it's not in context, if I don't know whether it was wet weather, dry weather, whatever, it's useless information. I'd have to go back and research the weather leading up to his sample to determine why the nitrates were high in that sample. Is it high because is it high when it's dry? Is it high when it's wet? You don't know. So that's the piece that's missing in his data, that if I'm going to get involved with Jack, I'm going to make sure that that doesn't happen this time around, that we know what the situation was every time there was a sample taken.
No, but it seemed like that was only a short-term sampling that he did, and he didn't seem to show any interest in doing any continuation
Well, he
or,
got paid to do it. He got a grant and he did his grant, and the grant was over and he was done.
oh, okay.
So he's a grant-based guy. So if he doesn't have the money, he doesn't do it.
So is Jack a teacher?
Jack, he's a retired Cohasset teacher. He runs the Cohasset,
Coastal research.
coastal research.
Oh.
He's back teaching a class for the school in GIS, but not as a full-time teacher.
He gave up his other job at Archie's?
I don't know. If you don't think I have enough going on with my own life and my job to worry about what Jack's doing with his life, I don't have time for that.
Okay, well, it looks like we are down to our last
Asset
item,
management,
the
the
rate
other one,
study.
last one is Fred and I are working on implementing the asset management program that Woodard uses. So we're slowly trying to flush this system out with the assets, and then Fred will be pulling in all the stuff from the CIP as well in the spring as we flush this out.
Very good.
So-
Thank you, gentlemen.
That's what the status of that is. So now all that's left is,
Rate study.
yep. So I sent the spreadsheet out to everybody, and Don and I sat down again and looked through it again, and given some additional changes we made, and that perceived deficit in the first few years, we included a 2.5% increase next year. Did Steve drop off?
Yeah, he just said he got booted,
Oh,
Oh, dear.
and I can't see if he's gonna ask to get back in.
I'll check an eye out.
Because I can't see anything now except for your,
I've got him, you can see my screen now. He's now, you can see if
Yeah,
he shows
no,
up.
I mean, I could
Hang
only see
on.
5 of us.
he's gonna join by phone, I think.
No.
Or he said
Um,
join by phone. Whichever.
Oh, Dawn's back. Hi, Dawn. There he is.
You got him?
Yeah.
All right, I got him, yeah, all right.
So as we said, we obviously just focused on the third tier option this time around. And Don and I found a couple of other pieces that were concerns, especially like I said, the what seemed to be deficits in these years. So I put in a 2.5% increase even in 22 to offset that deficit. This small deficit here is actually a capital expenditure. We're doing $400,000 of capital spending out of the budget next year, so that's how that shows up. It's just the way the spreadsheet was done. It's not the way we generally look at things, but it's showing that there's a deficit in the budget, but it's really not there.
Well, Jason, so you're in alt C, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you changed it again after you sent it to me. So what I'm looking at is not, what you have looks better than what I have. So I'm happy about that.
Oh, you know what I did, Don? I did what I talked about, and I talked to Lee about it. I took out Woodard's extra cost. I flattened Woodard. I left it at the 3% increase I left it at 3% compounded in 25, but I flattened it for the 2 years in the middle because it's flat for 2 years.
Okay.
And I also, Lee was working on her budget with some of these being flat in 22, so I flattened those two and left them whole, and that brought down the numbers accordingly.
Okay. And just I mean, what I would recommend, like 22, then we should be in really good shape. I don't even think, I think we'll actually, based on this, have a surplus of 400 grand then. I would recommend when you, in the CIP, we recommend rate funded for whatever that $430,000
Yeah.
project is.
Yeah.
I would just appropriate retained earnings to use that, to fund that.
Okay.
I mean, again, so just so everybody knows, retained earning and our free cash should be certified sometime in January. The state took priority on the tax recaps getting done, so they kind of pushed ours off to the side. But the preliminary numbers I even got from them is going to be 1.3, I think. So appropriating 430,000 for that specific project will leave us with a great balance, just in retained earnings. So if that's the case, that will help us going forward year after year as well.
And just so you know too, it's a weird, the way that, like I said, Don and I were saying today, if I were to do the spreadsheet over, I would do it slightly different. The 429 is the engineering cost for both of these projects combined, basically. So we'll upfront use the engineering money and then borrow for the entire capital expenditure. But the spreadsheet doesn't allow me to do that. So I kind of just took one and made it a rate and the other one the debt. But they won't be actually spent that way. It'll be spent slightly different.
Yeah, well, my philosophy has been to use as much cash as we can rather than go out borrowing, so that it would decrease the cost of the project.
And that's
Right, and so the way
what we
Jason
see.
kind of set that up is really ideal, right? I mean, use cash as we can for the consulting or the engineering piece of it. You get the solid numbers and the scope of the project, and and then pay for the rest of it with a bond issue, or again, year over year, we're setting rates for 5 years. Year over year, we're gonna talk, we're gonna budget, Lee, you and Brenda will do your thing, go through each of your line items. We're gonna have to take a look at this annually anyway. So if there's some projects that we either move around, pay fully with cash, I think there's gonna be some adjustments made every year. But now looking at this too, with some of those minor changes you made, Jason, this makes me a lot more comfortable in those future years as well.
And then we have been rather conservative in revenue because we just don't know. There are so many line items in there, especially system development.
Yeah.
We've had good years with that, and we've also had lean years, so we can't overextend ourselves in projecting what it's going to be.
Absolutely.
All right, so looking at these numbers now, do we feel that between the four of us here, we are comfortable using alternate plan C as our rate study going forward and producing a budget on that plus our regular budget?
I feel good about it. And I think, we can't speak for John, but he was adamant about, I can't say adamant, but he was more intrigued by Alt C.
And to the point, I think I don't want to get too bogged down in it, but I think you have to keep it at the base charge, which is what we discussed for a year leading up to the last meeting we had. The reason being is if you look at this chart here, this is just existing debt and expenditures from capital. You don't cover even the existing debt in this proposed thing until 2025 with the fees. So it's not a capital recovery fee. It shouldn't be called that. It should be called a base service charge.
Okay.
And just leave it at that. Everybody we talked about it for a year. I don't want to backtrack and confuse everybody again. And it's a base service charge.
See, I
Yeah.
think people got confused in the early days when the group got together. It was an outside group trying to figure out how to pay for it, and they came up with the name, but not very many people realized that it never did cover the debt service, and it was through our regular revenue that we were covering the rest of the balance of the debt service. And then after the debt service got refinanced 3 times, and then the last refinance, it extended it out 2 more years. So this is something that we have to get across to people that, hey, it's not that we've been doing something here to mess up our finances. We've been just trying to cover whatever has been done by the refinancing right now. But do we need a vote to accept alternate plan C as the rate study at this
It
point?
couldn't hurt.
What?
I'd say it couldn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt? Okay. Steve, would you like to make a motion?
Okay, you ready?
Ready?
Let's make a motion to use Alt C as a part of the rate study and budget planning. Can I get a second?
I second.
All
Okay,
in
all in
favor?
favor. Steve Girardi,
Aye.
Lee Jenkins, aye. Okay, it passed. So now the next step is, when are we going to be able to develop a presentation to start presenting to the Selectmen, Advisory, and Capital Budget? When should that be on the docket? Don, do you have any scheduling that you know of that's coming out of Town Hall for these meetings?
Not at the moment. All I know is that we've set a date for January 22nd to have water and sewer enterprise funds into us to the town for the budget. And I think the presentations will be, the final presentation to the board will probably be a month or so after that. So
No, because
I guess to answer your question, no, I don't have.
March possibly to And we
Yeah,
had to be
I can
careful, too.
check with Chris to see what he thinks of a time frame for presenting and starting to talk about this rate study or bringing this rate study back up again
Mhm.
to the various stakeholders in town, our select board and advisory, capital, whoever we need to go talk to. So I'll run by Chris, see what his thought is, and then get back to you with
All right.
time frame he thinks is going to be beneficial.
John, I got a quick question. Why does this have to go to capital out of?
It doesn't go to capital.
It doesn't?
No, capital. And when we were at the last time around, they said they don't want to, it's not on their jurisdiction. It goes to advisory and the selectmen.
Oh, they didn't want to hear it?
Okay, well, I remember the first rate study, we had a public hearing at the library, so I don't know if we should have a Zoom public hearing.
Yeah, I mean, it makes
Some
sense. Yeah, I'd love to get any questions out, from the public or whoever, just to make sure that we can answer them. Jason and I talked about an FAQ. If there's a bunch of questions that are out there that, we could post on the website at one point to, help the residents and the folks in town understand where we're coming from and why these rates need to be set the way they are, or the way we're proposing.
But
So,
in all my spare time, I'm going to work on a presentation.
so no.
I probably think a public presentation should be more towards March, April, closer to town meeting.
I'd say you have a public meeting with you guys after you've gone to the selectmen, so that way it gets on people's radar screen. Nobody's going to see it on their radar screen until it's in a big forum.
That's what I'm saying, that it has to. And, people I don't think will be thinking about too much, whatever. I have no idea what the schools are going to be doing, whether or not they're going to plan their traditional February and April vacations.
The other one too is I'm going to work on the article that we're going to need for this too and submit it.
Okay, because we need the deadlines for that.
It's already been sent out. I have it, so I'll write it
Okay.
up.
So for the town hall, I was watching the Board of Selectmen meeting the other night, and long story short, they I don't know if it was Pew was part of the committee, but they have a kind of like a social media PR person doing their thing, to kind of make I don't even remember the gentleman's name.
You mean Tucker? Tucker's a board member.
Oh, is he?
It's
Oh, I
Tucker
didn't know
Meehan, Leo Meehan's son, the W.E. Mason.
Oh, okay. I
He's a
know
board
that.
member.
No, I think we have somebody that can put this out there to get people to come in to listen to this. I think it'd be a good thing. Visual aid learner.
Well, that could be the other piece too, is I know we talked about getting the PR firm. If we get to a point where we think having some public relations involved, we can discuss that targeted use.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any other comments about this? Because I know Don has to be leaving shortly. Are we all comfortable?
I am, and thank you very much. This was
Okay, and then we will be working on our budget. We'll decide on our January meeting. We have to hear from John to see what his schedule is. So we'll do a regular email transmission to determine when our meeting would be. But Don,
Yep.
what's a good date for you in January? Do you prefer after the 15th or?
Yeah, if you could do one right after the 15th. I'm taking some time off after the holiday. I won't be back till I think the 5th or 6th of January. So having a little time to get back into it. We can do it after the 15th would be great.
Here, well, let me just take a look at the calendar here for a minute. Just give me a second to pull it up to see where we are. December. Okay, the 15th is a Friday. We have to have the budget in by the 22nd, which is the following Friday. So if we do a meeting and approve a budget, maybe the 19th or 20th, because the 18th is Martin Luther King. And I don't know what the plans are for that. I'm sure it's going to be a close down. So would that be all right? Do you think we'd have sufficient time
Yep.
with you to get our budget in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll be looking at the week of the 18th to plan a meeting. Brenda, if you can do the usual to notify people and find out what their availability is, I would appreciate that.
Yeah,
Okay, and are there any other comments or questions we have about anything we've discussed?
No other comments.
Okay. So I think it is, what time is it now?
4:18.
4:18. I move to adjourn our meeting.